Sorry, the video cut out. I was getting too caught up in talking about specially designed instruction. So to recap, the first video shows how to work on present levels of performance. There's the second video that talks about present levels and focuses on writing goals. So this is kind of the third part of that series. And we talked in the end of the first video about specially designed instruction. I think we talked about it a little bit in the second video. For specially designed instruction, that's what the teacher does. So you need to make sure that you include that information. Know that report card progressing has to be concurrent with the issuance of report cards. You could choose another system, but we have to send them out with report cards. When you're looking at the methods of evaluation, you will choose one of these in the system. And a lot of times we're looking at a curriculum-based measure, but you can definitely look at any of these other systems. The benchmarks for your goal goes here. And remember, in the second video, I talked about the fact that in Kentucky right now, we're not required to write benchmarks as a state, but your district might specifically have all teachers writing benchmarks, and that's perfectly acceptable. So now we're at the section about supplementary aids and services, and we talked about how this, as it clearly says here, it's to be provided to the child or on behalf of the child. So these statements often are very similar to these testing accommodations. And definitely if you check anything down here in the testing accommodations, you also have to mark it up here in supplementary aids and services. So for an example, this student might really benefit from a reader and a reader, I'm going to change that, for all materials above grade level or materials where we are assessing comprehension. You can just check or just write reader, but it really is good to specify because there are times when we want a student to attempt reading or to try reading or to read materials that are on their ability level, but they're not ready to read grade level materials. The same thing for a scribe. We might do scribe for all pre-writing activities, or for all finished products, or for all products over 2 paragraphs. But we still want a student, unless they have a motoric challenge in which they physically are unable to grasp a pencil or a pen, we want them to do some attempts at writing to get that practice and to move their ability up. So be specific about what a student needs. Students might also need extra practice through technology. And they might do really well improving their skills if they're doing a reading passage online or if they're doing math practice online. Be careful not to name specific programs because remember that ties the school district in, and that technology might go away, or that resource might change, or the district might change to a better research-based practice. So you just want to say, the use of technology or a research-based reading program. Any accommodations that are happening need to be part of what the ARC has determined, that admissions and release committee, and know that if I've got it up here, I need to make sure that the student has it here and vice versa. I can't just decide it's time for CATS assessment, so now I'm going to give a student a reader. They need to be using that consistently throughout their academic day and career, not just a one-time usage. So you can check here anything that a student might need. A lot of times other would be something like a calculator, which is not listed, although they do have use of technology, and a lot of times iPads now have a calculator embedded, so that's perfectly fine. This program modifications or support section would be things like training on how to administer medications for epilepsy. Or this could be crisis prevention training for all teachers with students. Know that whatever is listed here, the district is required to provide and pay for, so you need to make sure that you have already had that conversation prior to listing something there. Now we're down to the least restrictive environment, and this section where this falls in the IEP has changed a little bit when you're working online because this tends to pop up much earlier in the process. But here we're going to say when the student will not participate in the general education classroom. So they might participate in reading intervention in the resource room and resource room for extended writing or testing opportunities. So you want to be very specific about when the student will not be in the least restrictive environment. And then here, special education means special education teacher. This does not include the support of paraeducators. If you want to list paraeducator support, a lot of times that can be listed up here in supplementary aids and services. And this wouldn't be listed as a one-on-one para. Usually this is listed as adult support for behavior and writing during X classes. The more specific you are, the better it is for the student and all the adults who are trying to figure out how to staff. Know that it is never acceptable in an IEP meeting to say, we don't have enough adults, so we can't do that. All decisions are based on student need, and then the school is expected to provide supports based on that. So we've said special education services only rely on the special education certified teacher. The reason there are so many boxes here is we can do things like this. We could say a student is receiving 30 minutes of service each day. Ooh, sorry, five days a week. I'm sorry, let's do one time a day. And you usually put the start at the beginning of the IEP. So today it would be 02/11/15. We put the end date 02-10 because it's one day less to make sure that our IEP is still good. The service provider is going to be the SPED teacher, and this instruction is in the Gen Ed and not the regular classroom. The Gen Ed for reading, but then the student might also receive special education services for 30 minutes one time a day. Whoops, where's my daily box? Daily. Same dates by the SPED teacher. And this might be in the resource room for writing. So that's why the different boxes are there, if you're changing where you're providing the service or the subject area. Related services would be anything like OT, speech and language, PT. If you've got an ABA therapist coming in, anybody else that's coming in, you want to include them there. All right, extended school year services. If the student qualifies for extended school year services, and that was part of your 104 class, but if you've got questions, let me know. You would either check yes or no. That's again something you would talk about usually prior to the meeting. And then you want to look at any transition needs and services. This is the over 16 section. So if you don't have a student over 16, you're not required to fill out this section. We've gone all the way through the IEP. The one thing you'll notice about this IEP is there's only room for one goal, and I'm asking you to write, I believe, 3 or 4 goals. You'll need to just create a Word document, and in that Word document, excuse the hammering in the basement, in that Word document you will just write IEP goal 2, list the goal, and then list the benchmarks. So you'll need that separate attachment. All right, well I think I've covered everything in the IEP that we had planned to cover. If you've got any questions, let me know. Hope you have a great day.